What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Monday morning edition of Morning Cuppa Hockey presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So use our code NATION, NATION in all caps. Vic is back from his month-long bachelor party, and he's actually been on fire this morning a little bit. He really is stepping up because he knows that we're both pissed at him for taking so much time off, but we're happy to have Vic back. A busy weekend in the NHL. We had 15 games on Saturday, only one yesterday, so nothing too crazy on Sunday, but a lot of things happening right now. A lot of movement. Jim Montgomery obviously signs a 5-year deal with the St. Louis Blues just 5 days after being fired by the Boston Bruins. Colby, I know you have something that you want to say, a surprise guest we have coming on the show. So I'll kick it over to you before I continue to move on here.
Well, yeah, we talked about this last week, actually, because during one of our shows this past week, Tony D'Angelo,
What happened? What's going on?
Sorry, had a little double echo coming from my computer there, but okay. We talked about this during the show last week. As I was saying, Tony D'Angelo texted me about beef that he had with you. Which is just absolute music to my ears. So him and I were chatting a little bit, and he's going to jump on for a little bit of the show. We'll ask him about Ivan Demidov, big-time National Hockey League prospect that's on his team in the KHL. I've also seen him talking a lot about Jim Montgomery, amongst other things, and he actually was one of the first people to jump on there and talk about what a big mistake that was. So we'll ask him about that, what his connection is to Demidov. And then, to Montgomery. And then also I want to hear his thoughts on the New York Rangers, because I've seen him very active on social media talking about hockey, right? Like chiming in on things going in the NHL. And I mean, this is a guy who spent the last number of years playing in the NHL and for Carolina. So it'll be good to get his point of view on some of these things. But, look, starting with Jim Montgomery.
Yeah. Shout out J-Rock. Gotta give J-Rock some love.
You were very, very consistent that you felt like Don Sweeney probably should have been the one to go here and not. And maybe I'm putting words in my mouth. Maybe you didn't say that in your mouth, but maybe you didn't say that exactly. But you just did not feel like this was a Jim Montgomery thing. And then, sure enough, he's literally not out of work for a week. And if I remember correctly, right? And Vic, feel free to do your job and let us know here.
I know what you're thinking. It was Bruce Cassidy was 7 days. Claude Julien was 8 days.
Okay, like neither of those two guys lasted a full 10 days on the open market because, they both did a good job. I mean, their records were good. I think Claude is a little bit of a different situation than Bruce Cassidy and Jim Montgomery, where Claude won. And I just think there was a little bit of a philosophical difference. I don't think Claude was ever interested in using young players at all. I think there was a lot more willingness from Jim Montgomery and Bruce Cassidy to use young players, although Bruce Cassidy was harder on young players than anyone I've ever seen in the game of hockey. Now, Claude just didn't speak to young players. Like Bruce was hard on young players. Yeah. I don't know which one is worse. But Jim Montgomery back to work, 5-year deal, and I can't wait to ask Frank this tomorrow. If he would have signed the extension, because we've seen a lot of talk about the fact that they could not agree on a contract extension.
Yeah.
And had he signed the extension, would they still have made the change? Like with a fresh, let's say 3 or 4 year contract extension, would they have done this? Like we'll ask Frank that tomorrow. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer either. I know there's been like rumblings and stuff like that. But before we do get into the Blues talk, because we're probably going to talk about St. Louis now here for the next like 5 to 10 minutes, I do just want to give a quick word about one of our sponsors, Proraso, which is the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com. with our promo code hockey15 in all caps, hockey15. And Colby, just kind of diving into the St. Louis Blues thing. I know we're going to talk specifically about Jim Montgomery, but the Drew Bannister situation, you got to feel for him too, right? Because he takes over last year for Craig Berube, coaches 54 games, and then this year only gets 22 games. So not even a complete 82. And honestly, it's not even 82 straight. So not a full season when you add the two together, and not a full season just from start to finish either. So you got to feel for him. But you also have to respect the honesty and transparency of Doug Armstrong, who comes out yesterday and says, we literally fired him because we thought a better coach was available in Jim Montgomery. And this decision is 100% based on Jim's caliber becoming available, or someone of Jim's caliber becoming available. Jim Montgomery also, you have to remember, was an assistant coach with St. Louis from 2020 to 2022 for 2 years. So there is some familiarity with this group. And I imagine that's probably a big part of the decision as well.
Well, but familiarity with the general manager too. I mean, familiarity
is still the same also.
Yeah, no, I know. But I just think, I think Doug Armstrong is just really comfortable kind of bringing him in, giving him this contract. Because remember, Doug Armstrong, this is his last season as general manager, isn't it? They've already announced the succession plan.
It's Alexander Steen, I believe, right?
Exactly. So
yeah.
I think this is kind of all right. I feel really good about this. There's familiarity here in the front office. These are the two gentlemen that are going to continue to lead us when I go to the corner office and maybe become slightly more hands-off, although I don't fully seeing that happen. But look, I was curious about Bannister because I heard, from some different guys that, they didn't dislike Bannister. I think players thought he was a little bit of a nerd.
He was barely there.
But you look at his coaching career, it's not really long. Like, he started coaching in 2012 at the end of a very long career where he coached just about he played everywhere, the NHL, the AHL, all through the different leagues in Europe or whatever. But, he was an OHL assistant for a couple of years, an AHL head for a couple of years. And then he gets that opportunity when Berube gets fired. And look, I'm sure if Monty wasn't available, they wouldn't have made this decision. But I think this was a case of hey, somebody out there is available. And look, if Mike Sullivan loses his job in Pittsburgh, I think the same thing is going to happen. Yeah. Someone's going to get fired. But let's bring Tony in. He just logged in, coming from on the other side of the globe to us this morning. And let's get his take on this, because I know you've been a big supporter online, Tony, of Jim Montgomery. You're not surprised that this happened, right?
No, I thought, I might have exaggerated a little bit with 15 teams and I went back and looked at it, but I thought that it was going to happen. So I didn't know it was going to happen that fast. I thought it was going to happen sooner. You look at what he's done when he was in Dallas, and you look at what he did with Boston. No offense to Boston. I don't think that Boston roster was a franchise or NHL record-setting roster point-wise. And, he took that team kind of – Cassidy did a good job with them all them years too. Montgomery kind of took them to a different level. They played with the puck. They were, dynamic all over the ice. And you get a chance to hire a guy like that. I just heard you guys finishing up the segment a little bit there. You got to take a shot at it. So I don't know Bannister at all in St. Louis. I don't know anything about him. I know he was in Sault Ste. Marie. Nobody ever spoke bad about him that I talked to, but I think it's that's part of the business. You get a chance to hire a top end coach like that, you gotta make the move quick. So good on St. Louis.
Yeah, listen, this team. Oh, I'll go.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think Bannister will get he'll get an assistant coaching job in the National Hockey League. I was saying this to Johnny off air. I think head coaches when they get a guy that has head coaching experience that they can bring in. Look around the NHL. A lot of the assistant coaches have head coaching experience. But I think Bannister was always the guy to try to guide them through a little bit of this rebuild, retool that they're in. Because you look at his history as developing players with the AHL and the OHL. He doesn't have NHL experience. And I think, as Doug Armstrong, I think, sort of alluded to, now they have the guy who can get them through this part and then also coach when they're good again. And so when you have that opportunity, again, it's kind of a win-win. He gets his 5-year deal, so good for Monty. It sounds like Boston wasn't willing to give him a 5-year deal. And I almost wonder if that was coming from ownership, because does Sweeney or Neely have 5 years of leash left on their lives in Boston? I would say no.
It seems like it.
Well, you would think, but eventually Jeremy Jacobs will come to wit's end. I mean, he will eventually get there. And I think now sooner than later. You don't get that many coaching hires. Like he's now had a lot of coaching hires.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't blame Sweeney and Neely for like the playoff exits. You know what I mean? And you can't blame the coach for it every time either. Like you're not always going to win the Stanley Cup. Bruins have been good for a long time. Like there hasn't been a time when they weren't good in I don't know how many years it's been now. So it's tough. I mean, it's tough. But they have let some good coaches go, and the GM and the president continue to get to stay. So it's an interesting dynamic they got going on there.
I think they missed the playoffs once in like the last 20 or so years. 2016, I think Boston didn't make the playoffs. I'll need Vic to correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 2016. But Tony, that's like a good point too. And I want to get to the beef that you have with me in a second here, but I want to kind of build on this point. No, because listen, St. Louis is a team that won the Stanley Cup 5 years ago. And every single NHL fan base right now just seems so impatient with everything. And this is something I saw you talking about. Like teams just can't make moves every day. That's not how this league works. But it feels like it's more impatient now than ever. 15 and 16, Vic just said. So back to the point, though, it feels like every fan in every organization, no matter who you are, I'm seeing Chicago Blackhawks fans talking about firing Luke Richardson. What else do they expect? What result do the Blackhawks want? You know what I mean? Like it just seems like
I got to be honest. I think the Blackhawks should be a little better than they are.
I think so too.
What do you?
When they went out this summer, and went from maybe the youngest team in the league to probably a middle of the pack age-wise. They signed veteran after veteran to.
Well, Bedard's not scored
almost more than 1 year deals on all of them. It wasn't just like, oh, let's patch it up a little bit for Bedard, go 1 year deal. They went 2 year deal, they went 3 year deal, they went 4 year deal. They should be. I mean, I'm not blaming Richardson. I'm not there to tell you what's going on. But they should be a little bit better, I think, than what they are. Like they go into Philadelphia a couple of days ago, get outshot, they get dominated. Flyers come back, score 2 in a third, win in overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you got to take a little bit of a step. Now Bedard's on the wing. It's like not much is going on there in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing certain things regress. I think the only guy that the Blackhawks can really sit here and be really happy with are the fact that when Peter Mrazek has been in the net, he's been really good. I mean, the way he's revived his career, amazing. Good for Peter. He's a good guy. And Alex Vlasic. And I think Kevin Dean, who runs the defensive core, who also ran the D core for all those years when Charlie McAvoy was a first-year player, when Brandon Carlo was a first-year player. Like, I think Kevin Dean deserves a lot of credit for Alex Vlasic because, man, I watched Vlasic play in college. Like, what he is in the National Hockey League, I mean, he is one of the premier shutdown he's starting to kind of grow into that Jacob Slavin type of player, Tony. I mean, you know him well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Vlasic. I like the kid they sent down to start the year too, Korchinski. I'm not sure if he's back up.
He's still in the American League.
Yeah.
No, I thought he scored. Oh no, that was Michael.
There's two big building blocks right there. I mean, not many guys have 6'4", 6'5" guys on the left side who can skate like that. But this Vlasic kind of took over that number one spot as far as who's going to, the guy on the left side. Maybe a year ago you say Korchinski was going to be the guy. Now it's Vlasic. On a trajectory like this, he's flying up the rankings. But he's good. He's solid. I love when he's with Jones. They're big. They could both skate. They could shut you down. They could pin you down in the corners, both of them with the size they have, and they move the puck. But you might hit the nail on the head there about the only two guys that they have going in the right direction for what they're looking for. But it's still, I mean, the season's still you're quarter of the way through now. But I think Chicago's got to start. You got to start seeing a little something there. I mean, they signed some decent veteran players. I think some good players. Juicy, Turbine, list goes on. So they got to get going a little bit.
Well, stay with
3 goals in 21 games.
Look, I love the prospect talk, and I know you're dialed into the game of hockey. You always have been, right? I mean, you're a guy who's just lived at the rink. We've talked about it on this show and others, but there is an interesting prospect in the NHL that you play with, and I think a lot of Montreal fans, they're just clamoring for this guy, and we know you've talked about him. We've seen highlights where you're both a part of them together. So tell us about Ivan Demidov. Like, what's he like, and what should people over here expect once he does get to the National Hockey League?
No, they love him. These Montreal people are in love with him already. It's they got
clips every day on Twitter.
The more you get to talk to them people and read their stuff, they got a great fan base. They're crazy, but it's in a good way. He is. Somebody asked me today. We had a Russian reporter ask me today, like comparing him to McDavid and McKinnon. I was like, hold on, whoa. I said, I'm not going to, put the kid on that level and then have him go over, put that on him. But he has. I mean, you're talking like it's world-class talent. I said, I don't scout the drafts, obviously, but it's hard for me to believe that there was, all right, Celebrini, and then 3 more guys that went over him. It's hard to imagine that 3 more guys have that kind of skill set this guy has. I mean, he's a dynamic skater, and he's pretty thick, like he's like a strong kid, but he's still, he's nowhere near matured or anything yet. He's real strong on his skates. He flies. He's got a big-time shot, like top-notch skill. I don't know. It's tough for me to put a projection on him. I like watch him play. I played 22 games with him here and now, but there's no way to me he doesn't turn into this is the lowest end possible would be to me a 30-goal top 6 winger. That's my low end for him based off of what I
low end.
What I watch. I think he could be a star. I think that he has. I think the NHL game is going to be much different for him. This game is way different here than he's going to see in North America, and I'm still getting used to it. It's it's a lot of guessing going on. There's not a lot of physicality as far as forechecks and stuff. There's a lot of guessing. There's a lot of puck play, a lot of puck possession. The NHL is going to be a more north-south game, but it may benefit him almost with that north-south speed that he has. He doesn't have to worry. Like this game, it's much different, so it's hard for me to project, how long is it going to take him to get used to that North American style. With his skill set, it shouldn't be long. But, I'm sure there's going to be a little adjustment period. But he's got, at pick number 5, either these kids are becoming unbelievable at this young age or this is just a deep draft. That's the only 2 answers I can come up with.
What's he like as a teammate, though? Is it hard for you to connect with him as a teammate, I imagine, just because of the barrier?
He kind of understands what I'm saying. Not everything. I think it'd be good for Montreal to get a Russian guy next year to bring with him, whether it be a veteran guy or whatever the case is, free agent, somebody just to have. I think it's important for those guys to have somebody they could just be around that speaks their language, not always trying to learn what anyone's saying. But he gets on pretty good. Kuznetsov's there. Like if I'm talking Kuzi could translate something to him if he doesn't quite know what I'm saying. But he's such a young kid. He looks like he's 15 years old. And now I'm getting much older. I just turned 29, and you look at this kid. I feel like I'm as young as these guys, especially the way I act. But he's such a young kid. It's interesting that guys like him know a little bit of English, and there's other guys who don't really speak any English at all here.
Yeah, I could not imagine playing over there. I'd be a lost puppy.
Yeah, what is so talk to us about life over there. As far as routine goes, because I know when I was over in Europe and I played in the Finnish league at one point, Swedish, a lot of running and practices. I'll never forget the biggest thing that threw me off was the first day of practice. They started practice with the nets in the corners with a 2-on-2 battle drill. And I was like, don't we do a warm-up drill or 2 before we get into that? My body's not ready.
The practices here, they try to do, they're big on trying to follow the NHL here. So they try to, replicate a lot of the stuff that they're seeing going on in the NHL, whether it be systems or whether it be practices, off-ice work, whatever the case may be. But so that stuff's been fine. The travel is a little different here, the way they do things. I was on the Tim Peel and JR show kind of telling them a little bit about it. For example, Russia's gigantic, as you guys know. We leave. So Thursday we play in Admiral, but Admiral's 7 hours ahead of us here. So I'm 8 hours ahead of you guys, on Eastern time.
They're 7 hours ahead of you in the same country?
7 hours ahead of us, Moscow time. So they're 7 hours ahead of Moscow time. So we're going to go, and the flight's 10 hours because we got to go 5 hours and we stop. And then, I guess wait an hour or so, then finish the next 4.
Fuel up.
But they go on Moscow time here. So I explained this on the last podcast I was on. I said it's confusing to me because, for example, when we're going to play on Thursday, the game's 7 o'clock Admiral time, wherever the city's at. It's, it's 7 o'clock their time. So them guys are going to be getting up at 9:30, morning skate, whatever they're doing. We are sleeping, the plan, because the time change is so crazy. We're going to be sleeping until, if you can, 4 o'clock. Then we wake up, have our breakfast at 4, because we're going on Moscow time. So technically that's 9 o'clock for us. Then we'll have a walk, and then we'll go to the rink. And at 10 o'clock our time, it's 5 p.m. and we're 2 hours out from the game. That's how we're going to go about our schedule. So it's much different. Like, you never see anything like that at home. But we also don't have that kind of, time zone difference. So we get some days off. Like, they'll spread it out. We'll go on this trip. We play 2 games, both, in different time zones, 7 hours ahead, and then we'll have 5 days off, come back, play a couple more. So that kind of stuff's different, but just, it is what it is.
Have you been able to find Passyunk Avenue to get some good Italian food, or what's the food like over there?
The food here is unbelievable. I don't know, I don't know what anybody's ever told me about Russia. I never really talked much about food. The guys I know over here always said it was pretty good. I mean, St. Petersburg, the food's amazing. Every restaurant is great. The food's fresh. At our rink, the kitchen that they make, they have chefs there. It's great, like top-notch kitchen. There's 45 different options they have every day. So that part's been a big, pleasant surprise for me. I wasn't expecting to have such good food. It's just like eating at home. It's nothing different. There's even good Italian restaurants here.
I don't know if you could say it's just like eating at home. Your family,
not homemade, not like, not my house.
I was just gonna say, I know where you come from. You better be careful what you say. Okay, I've made that mistake before with mine. So just be a little bit careful.
Restaurant wise.
Okay. All right.
Do that.
Well, Tony, before we get moving on here, because we got a lot of business to get into with the rest of this show, what is this possible beef that you have with me? Because Colby's been talking about it for a week now.
I got 2 beefs with you. Number one was your ass kissing of Winnipeg when they came into New York.
Whoa. How
on your morning stage, they lost. Now all of a sudden, 13 games in, Winnipeg is the most dialed team you've ever seen before because they're 13-0. Give me a break.
They don't joke around.
I'll tell you right now, the Winnipeg is not winning the Stanley Cup. I'll dial that in for you right now.
I'm not saying they are either. I would bet money on that too.
Number 2, I like some of the videos you've been posting. I like the breakdowns, but the other team's going to score once in a while. The Rangers are going to let them a goal. We can't break down and nitpick every single player, especially Mika.
I was actually defending him.
The guy can't fumble the puck. I know you defended him on the play where he fumbled it and then Panarin comes pinching in. But the guy can't even fumble the puck without people wanting to rip his head off in New York. So I like the breakdowns, but let's remember, New York's going to let in a few goals this year. Igor and the boys, there's going to be some 2-on-1s. The players are going to slide sometimes. The brain it doesn't always work that fast to think of everything.
It's easy with this. I always say when you have space bar, the game of hockey is really easy when you can pause, space, pause.
I'm actually surprised that this is hockey related. I thought it was something else.
I do like some of your breakdowns. Some of your breakdowns are good, but they're going to let in some goals.
You're more than welcome to critique them, Tony, if you want.
Tony, are you worried about the Rangers? Because what I have seen on social media over the past few days, and I texted Johnny about this last night.
Yeah.
And you know how social media algorithms are, like, because him and I are talking all the time and like they're showing me the stuff that the Rangers fan base is in, like DEFCON, whatever the highest, craziest level of DEFCON is where Rangers fan base is right now. Are you concerned, or are you like not as concerned? Because I don't really, you've been in that locker room.
There's 2 ways to look at it. You got to be concerned for sure a little bit, but then they're still off to a pretty decent start, as bad as everyone says they've played and as bad as they say they've played, and they're still pretty decent in the standings, right? So that's
3 wins versus Detroit, a win versus Pittsburgh, a win versus Anaheim.
They all count though. I mean, and listen, when you get to the playoffs, none of them doesn't matter who you beat. But so that part's promising that they're able to still find ways to win games. But the one thing I think about New York is, and I even say this to the guys I've talked to that play on the team, I think they play too slow through the neutral zone and are too passive defensively. Given teams like Edmonton, Carolina, those type of teams, there's too much time and space for neutral zone. I know that's the Laviolette trap there, or whatever you want to call it, but you're a lot of times you're setting to go back and have to get the puck if teams chip it in from the red. And they really, in my opinion, only have one true puck mover that's going to transport that puck out of the zone, 95% of the time, and that's Fox. Not that the other guys can't do it. I mean, Zach Jones can move the puck with his feet. Lindgren's a patient guy. Miller's got amazing feet when he's using them properly. But Fox is the only guy that really gets it out. So to me, they're hemming themselves in. You look at some of the goals. I don't know what's going on, but they have the talent to get out of it. It's not like they have bad players. I mean, they got 3 lines that if you look at, if I'm in the locker room looking at the 3 lines they have, the top 3 lines, I'm pretty impressed by them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think maybe it's time to move. This is not just because he's my buddy, but Jimmy Vesey. If you look at Vesey over the years, when he plays more minutes, he scores, and even when he doesn't play minutes, he still scored. I think 14, 15 goals last year. Even all right, take the empty nets off, he still scored 10 goals. And he's playing 6, 7 minutes a game. Like, move some guys around a little bit. It looks like it's the same lineup almost every night. Then all of a sudden Trocheck gets moved away from Panarin as which has been one of the best combinations for the last year. I don't know. I think they have the talent to get out of it, but it seems like a little bit of a rut. But you know how it is, Colt. When the media just continues to pile and pile and pile and pile, that weighs on some guys. Me, I don't give a shit. Didn't bother me what I could care less what they said. But some guys, they start to face some pressure. You're getting booed at home. Like it's different people. Look at Boston. Yeah. Boston's feeling the same way.
Well, I actually don't know if the media was really piling on guys though. Like Mika was getting a lot of the attention.
Let's say social guys. Guys still see social.
It's fans. Yeah, it's not like the media is really pressing. It's fans every game that are like, we got to send 93 to the moon. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like,
we ain't getting rid of 93, so they better figure out a way. They better figure out a way to support them or do what they got to do.
And I see this comment in the chat from New York Marine, and you're right. I didn't see the Alberta games, but he says 93, 55, 8, not playing like NHLers. Look. Guys get into ruts. I mean, but the thing is like you're not going to win without those guys finding their game. And so you've got to try different things as a coach to pull different levers, maybe put them with different players. Maybe you're even double shifting a guy, but like you pull the rug out on those guys. You don't have a team. They're not tradable players and you need them to be good. So you kind of have to have faith that your coach and that your management team understands that like, hey, look, we got to work through this, and working through it can look different. First, it can be putting them out. Then it can be changing their lines. And then sure, eventually, could you look at putting them upstairs? You could, but like with those 3 players, I don't think that's the right path.
Yeah,
not happening.
The only thing that I would say is with a little bit of accountability is like the power play. That goal that Nurse scored late in the first period, short-handed goal. Someone comes off the power play this game, right? You put a guy that's going to work a little more. Not that they don't work hard; those guys all work hard.
Lafreniere on the top group. There's your opportunity.
4 guys.
Everybody coming back, staring at the puck. Right? You're not thinking that Nurse is going to come in with that much time left. I understand the way guys think. I wouldn't think Nurse is coming back like that either. I'd be coming into the pile, fucking like, come on, let's go back the other way. Sometimes you think that way. Your brain, you just die out for a second. But like when they're going through that, you got to have, especially when all your letters are out there besides one. You got to find a way to cut that kind of stuff out. But maybe try to jolt the power play, take somebody off, kick him in the ass a little bit. Maybe take 2 guys off, go 2 units, whatever. I don't know. But to scratch Mika, what's that going to do for him?
I agree. Besides,
it's not going to do anything for him to scratch your captain.
I don't think that's the right path with
that
these
happens
guys.
Down the road in Philadelphia, and it hasn't. It's not working out like that for them players either.
No.
Also, a thing with the Ranger fans right now, Tony, into other sports too. Like the Rangers were the team that like gave everyone in New York hope. The hockey team is a team that everyone, obviously Jets fans, Giants fans, Yankee fans, Mets, all these different sports fans, but a lot of them always or also root for the Rangers. And you think about like the last month or two in New York sports, you have the Mets, go to like whatever the ALCS or whatever. NLCS.
More hope around the city now.
Yeah, they lose, and then the Yankees lose in the World Series. The Jets suck. The Giants suck. Like this is the one team in New York where people are like, okay, this team's legit. They can do it, and they come out and have this kind of start to the year, and it's just more and more disappointment piling on for New York sports fans. Like I think that's also where the inner anger comes out too.
The good thing is, like I said, they have. I don't know what their exact record. I had to go back and look right now, but they're off to a pretty decent start for playing so bad. So let's see how the next 20 games go. The next 20 games they go 13-7 and are playing better hockey. They're really got a nice little cushion on the playoffs, and they're trending in the right direction 40 games in. So they got to they're only 20% in, 25% in. Let's give them a little bit of time. They still them players ain't going nowhere. Maybe a guy like Lindgren, 1 year left, you swap him out for somebody else going to come in, like if they want to make a move. Everybody else, where are they going? They ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, me personally, I'm not giving up on Keandre Miller because I think his tools are too good. And I just think when you see some of the mistakes that he's making, I think they're the type of situations where you can look at video and you can show him how it looks. And I think he's a smart enough guy. Like, he's going to get himself going back in the right direction. I wouldn't give up on him because he's got a very specific build and skill set that I think is hard to find. I really do.
There's only a handful of guys that have the skill set he has as far as size, strength, skating, even defensive mistakes he makes. He can get back in 2 seconds with that speed and stick.
Exactly.
The only way I would move from him is if somebody was paying me a premium as if he was still playing like he was a year and a half ago. You know, you can't trade him right now for lower value than what
he's on the dollar. Exactly.
You know, maybe somebody else has a similar problem with a guy around the league. I don't know. Maybe, you know, and they want to make. I don't know. He has everything you're looking for in a defenseman.
Yeah. Well,
maybe
look,
he could use a little more grit to his game. I'd say get a little nastier down low. Start throwing guys around. He's big enough to do it.
We know you went out of your way to.
No one's doing that.
Yeah, it's true. Look, they're just playing too casual. You look at the way they go back on pucks. I mean, you were talking about their breakout earlier. It's glaring the way they kind of go back on pucks.
High flip, skating into the neutral zone, flipping it out and trying to skate into it.
Tony, we appreciate you giving us 30 minutes this morning. I know it's dark there.
It's dark all day.
We love seeing you tear it up over there. I loved your appearance on Snipes and Stripes with JR and Tim Peel. I thought that was handled really, really well. I love watching you mix it up, but then I love how you're always willing to back it up. Like, you're always willing to face those types of situations, and I got a lot of respect for that. So the last thing I'll say, State of Mind collection. You guys are selling out of clothes left and right. Every time you guys post a new capsule, it's gone. So I don't know if you want to just give a quick little plug for that before we let you go, but the stuff looks awesome.
Yeah, the stuff's getting better and better. I appreciate that, by the way. The stuff's getting better and better. Manufacturers, all that, you know how it is. It's getting, we're coming along a little bit, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. But their Black Friday sale starting on Wednesday, so it'll be 25% off and free shipping. Obviously US only, site wide. So looking forward to hopefully some young kids. We see some orders coming in school, like some parents that I coach and stuff, and the kids for Christmas and all that. So it's exciting. It's something to do for me, obviously, over here too. So busy working away at it, following, and so Wednesday be back Black Friday sale for about a week, but a lot of positive stuff going on with that. So I appreciate the support. A lot of New York orders in there too. So if they're listening to your show today, I appreciate it.
You're dialed in like Winnipeg with the clothes, huh?
That's right. That's a morning skate Winnipeg with the clothes.
All right, man. Look, we'll check in with you in another couple of weeks. Keep putting up points. Keep tearing up that power play. And you and Kuznetsov seem to be showing up on my feed with some sort of highlight reel play every couple of days.
I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, Tony.
Appreciate it. I did not think it was going to be hockey related at all. That's funny. But no, good guy. Happy he came on here. Colby, we got to apologize to the Blues fans. I feel like we have a lot of St. Louis Blues fans that listen to this show every day. And the day that we were really going to go in and talk about them, kind of just steer away from it. But, obviously it's an exciting time for the Blues fans to now have Jim Montgomery locked in. Today, they're at Madison Square Garden, so I'm going to the Blues Morning Skate as soon as we wrap up today's show. I'll talk to some of those guys, hear what they have to think about the hiring of Jim Montgomery. But, the St. Louis Blues, again, are a team that, both of us weren't really excited about going into the season. We both didn't have them making the playoffs. I think we actually had them finishing, like 7 or 8 in the Central. But right now they're 9-12-1. They're 7 points back of Dallas for third in the division. They're 5 points back of Colorado for fourth. I don't see them jumping up much higher than even fifth. The Central Division from 1 to 5. I think those are the teams. Maybe Nashville figures it out, but I think those are the teams that are going to finish 1 to 5. But St. Louis Blues, anything you want to say about them before we change it up a little bit and talk about our power rankings?
Listen, when you've got Ryan Suter on your top pair, you got problems. So I think Jim Montgomery is going to get this team playing a little bit quicker and a little bit more north faster. But, you just kind of look at the way that the team is built up. There's not a lot of depth up front. There's a lot of kind of similar looking players on the roster. Obviously, Kyrou, Neighbor is a little bit different. I don't know if you heard Buchnevich, his interview that he did where basically the day before Bannister got fired, he's like, we don't practice offense. We only practice D zone, D zone, D zone. So that's not going to be the case with Jim Montgomery. He's certainly a guy
right now. Also, for the first time, Montgomery's talking to the media at the Garden right now.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, look, do I think they'll win tonight potentially with a new coach bump? I don't know. Maybe. I like, because of the way the New York Rangers are playing, I think maybe yes. But I don't think that Jim Montgomery is going to come in here and turn this into a great roster right away. Like, I think personnel is problematic, and I think they're in the middle of this little stage of kind of this retool. And you know, again, I don't expect St. Louis to be a playoff team this year, and I really don't expect them to be a playoff team next year. Like, I think they're going to go through some growing pains before they're back being a really good team. And as J-Rock says, no Krug, no Leddy, no Broberg. Like, I agree, but like, that's part of hockey. That's why you need certain depth. You know, Krug has had some issues over the last couple of years. They tried to trade him to Philly. Then we know what he did. Broberg, who got off to a great start, but is still pretty unproven, right? I mean, I'm not ready to crown Broberg, you know, in that situation just quite yet. So we'll see. I like, it's fun when they're good, because that is a great fan base. That building gets loud. It's a great playoff atmosphere. But I just think that coach or no coach, they're a little bit of ways from that. But I do think Monty will help improve them from day one. I do think there will be some improvement.
I don't think it's going to be anything drastic, though. Like you said,
I agree.
Again,
I would agree.
It's a roster that neither of us are excited about, and I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. But happy that Jim Montgomery found another job, because I did think that firing was a little bit unwarranted in Boston. So happy to see him land on his feet in a place that he appears to be comfortable in, that he has familiarity with. And that'll be all that we'll say about the Blues for now.
I just want to address Singsy here in the chat, because I see some Tony D'Angelo chatter in the chat right now. And I'll tell you what, Singsy, you know, I see your comment that you doubt he gets another NHL job. He's addressed it, but the chatter I've heard is brutal. Lots of teammates hate him. I couldn't disagree with that more. Now, I have no idea if he'll get another opportunity in the NHL. He's clearly good enough at hockey. Universally, his teammates love him. Coaches may not love him. He may have had some, you know, back and forth with some coaches over the year, but, and yes, he is my friend, but you can ask every player who he played with in New York. You ask every player he played with in Carolina. You ask the captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, Sean Couturier, what he thinks of him. You ask Travis Konechny what he thinks of him. You ask Travis Sanheim, guys that, you know, I see, that we go to weddings with, that we're around in the summer. Like, you know, guys love having him around. They love his passion. They love his fire. They love that he's the first guy to throw his gloves off and go stick up for a teammate. So saying that his teammates don't like him, Singsy, I'm just telling you, you're off base. You're just completely off base with that remark. Like, I mean, like, again, I mean, sure, is there maybe one or two players that, you know, you might play with on a team that don't really care for you? Yeah, but that's any and every player. You know, and you're talking about, you know, I'm just letting you know, like, that's just wrong, just factually incorrect. You should have seen his wedding. How many teammates were at his wedding? You can always tell if a guy is beloved or not by who shows up to a wedding, who shows up to a bachelor party. There was a long line of people at both of those things. Excuse me, not his wedding, but his birthdays, his bachelor parties, whatever. Like, long line of people, you know, that want to go to those things. Sorry, I've been to other weddings with him and seen sort of the fanfare around him. Now I'm confusing guys and what weddings you're at, but you know, I just completely disagree with that. So I just wanted to address that as we move on, Johnny. I think we want to spend some time with our power rankings this morning.
Yeah, would definitely love to get into that. It's been a couple weeks that we've done this. You know, I think 3 weeks. We usually try to do it every other week, but because Vic was gone last week, I don't think we did it. So let's get our power rankings up on the screen again. Just to preface this, Colby and I don't discuss this, so we don't know who has which team where. And this is based on the teams that we feel are the best right now. Obviously, there is recency bias that goes into it because some teams are playing better than others are right now. And I'm noticing right away that we've both taken out the Florida Panthers. The Panthers, I think, were both in our power rankings last time we did this, but they have not looked good as of late. And let's break down what we got going on here. You have Vegas out, and Vegas is actually the one team that I put a star on, just because I think they've been a little bit inconsistent as of late, but their reputation is the reason why I kept them in. Like Vegas, to me, any given night, they can look like the best team in the National Hockey League. And Jack Eichel has looked incredible this year. Missing Mark Stone, I think, has obviously been a significant absence for them. But the Golden Knights were the one team that I was actually iffy on, and I wasn't ready to throw Colorado in, even though I know Colorado has won, I think, 6 of their last 7, and Mikko Rantanen's on fire. Cale Makar has been the best defenseman in the NHL yet again, and Nathan McKinnon right now is
6 of their last 7, 7-3 over their last 10. They're starting to get healthy. They put up 6 against Carolina. They beat LA. Okay. They beat Washington. They beat Florida. They lost 1-0 to Winnipeg, which is a good hockey game. And then you've got, they took care of Seattle with 6 goals. So I got to tell you, like, I don't know how you don't have Colorado in your 5 power rankings of who are the best teams right now over the last 10 to 12, maybe 2 weeks of the season. Like,
well, you're still keeping the whole season involved in this. It's not just like who are the best teams the last 2 weeks. It's not.
So then why don't you just go through the standings and pick the five teams with the best record in the standings then when you do your power rankings?
That's not. I think there are good teams that got off to bad starts. I think there are bad teams that got off to good. It's how the whole season goes. You can't just like take away the first 3-4 weeks or first month of the season. You're going to sit here and say like you trust Alexander Georgiev still because he's had a good couple games. I don't.
What I'm telling you is when we look at the power rankings, the way I do power rankings in my head is, yes, I take overall and then I look at who's played the best since the last time we did the power rankings, who's been the best 5 teams to me over the last 2 weeks of the season, because we do this every 2 weeks. Like Colorado's maybe got they're not in the top 5 or 7.
I don't even think they're in the top 10 right now.
How about the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I have them in there.
I understand that, but like, let's look at the standings for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the National Hockey League. Like the Toronto Maple Leafs are 6th in the National Hockey League standings. So like, they're not in the top 5. I don't know. Like, I just don't. I don't like the way that when you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, you look at the teams they're losing to, you look at how inconsistent they've been. To me, they're not playing like one of the best 5 teams in the National Hockey League right now, and Colorado is. And I see a lot of people wondering because Brendan Van Riemsdyk made a comment in our chat, and then everybody's wondering, is this the brother of blah, blah, blah? Like, yes, Brendan Van Riemsdyk was in our chat this morning. He is the youngest brother to James and Trevor. He played Division I hockey at Northeastern.
Yeah, he's still playing. I played against him growing up.
Not still playing. He coaches now. I actually just saw him a couple of weeks ago at one of the rinks. But again, you hear him chime in and say Tony DeAngelo a legend. Well, both of his brothers have played with Tony D. So again, like that's another person in the hockey world that kind of knows him and knows what he's like. But anyways, back to Vegas. We've got a Vegas fan in the chat right now. As a Vegas fan, I have to agree, Colby, very inconsistent play. I think goaltending's been inconsistent. The only thing that hasn't been inconsistent about the Vegas Golden Knights is Jack Eichel. He's the only thing that hasn't been inconsistent.
Well, Barbashev's been pretty good too on their top line.
He has played well. Give him credit where credit's due. But I don't know. Like, I think for me, like I look at Carolina, you know, and I know the argument is always, well, they're beating bad teams, right?
Carolina.
Well, but when you beat a bad team, like let's say Carolina, like they beat the Flyers the other night. They beat them 4-1. They beat them easily, right? They beat St. Louis 4-1. They beat them easily. They beat Ottawa 4-0. So yeah, you can't help who you play, but you still have to take care of the bad teams, and you have to take care of them in a convincing way. And that's where I kept Carolina in that number 2 spot, Johnny, because they've just been, you know, the model of consistency. They've had the big wins. They took care of Vegas. They took care of Washington in their last little stretch of games. Their losses came to Colorado and New Jersey, 2 very good teams that are playing very well right now. But
yeah, Vic, can you back up for a second?
Go ahead.
I just want Vic to get the teams back up. Keep going, just so people can see.
No, I'm just kind of taking you through my thought process of where I come up with these things. I mean, our 1, 2, 3 are basically
behind Carolina, though.
I think you look at Jersey. Yeah, they're 7-3. They've had some really good wins. They beat Florida back-to-back, 4-1 and 6-2. I mean,
beat Carolina, beat Washington. They're beating the good teams.
4-2. They beat Washington 3-2. They took care of Edmonton 3-0. Look, they're a top team in the National Hockey League right now. And like, you look at our top three, like, I think you can kind of split hairs with the top three. Like, I think you can make a case for all three of those teams, more likely Carolina and New Jersey. And I think that's where, again, like, I don't see a big difference is basically my point. I don't see a big difference. I think Carolina's probably in a little bit of trouble with their goaltending.
Yeah.
They're back to the injury bug with the goaltending situation, inconsistency. So
Chekhov and Anderson both out.
Next time we do this ranking, I wonder if Carolina will still be in it, or will they be down in the 5 spot? Will they move down? I think they might. I think that they might, Johnny.
Yeah, and I just want to harp on the Devils one more time. Their special teams, that the power play is like 7 of its last 17. Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes, they are so fun to watch, and I know they don't get the credit that they probably deserve because they're not like the McDavid and Draisaitl. They're not the McKinnon and Rantanen. But to me, like, they're a dynamic duo in the league. And I know they're like considered the smaller guys, and maybe that won't translate in playoff hockey. But I have so much fun watching those two play every night. I really do. And I'm saying that as a Ranger fan. Like, Jesper Bratt, to me, his elusiveness, the way he's shifty, the way he moves around the ice, like, that guy is must-watch hockey. And one other thing to note about the Devils is their goaltending. This was their big issue last year. Looking at the last couple of games, Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen, they might be the best goaltending duo in the NHL right now. Markstrom in his last 6 games, a 9.13 save percentage, a 2.35 goals against, and Jake Allen, 3-1-0 in his last 4, a .964 save percentage, and a 1.27 goals against. Like, the goaltending has been on the money for New Jersey, and I see you smirking, so I'm going to go look.
I'm some of my friends that listen to the show, some of my Flyers Warriors guys listen to the show, and one of them just said something that I literally cannot read it.
Okay.
It's a very offsides comment, but it's funny nonetheless. And they all the Flyers Warriors guys, the veterans, they all jumped into the show because they wanted to hear Tony. They love Tony. Tony gives back to the veteran community in a big way. He gives a lot of time, and he's involved with Wounded Warrior projects and this and that. So anyways, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just surprised that you right now don't feel like Colorado is playing like a top 5 team. I mean, I think
I thought Colorado was the best team in the league last year.
They've won 6 of their last 7 games. Like, I get, like, nobody's won 6 of their last 7 but them. They're the hottest team in the league right now, and they're getting
Toronto Maple Leafs. 7 of the last 8.
What, 7 of the last 8.
7-1-0 without Matthews.
Listen, put them back up. Let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. Let me tell you something that I saw last night out of Toronto. Little thing here, but I actually take it as a positive. And at the end of the game, they're trying to close out the lead. They're trying to close out their lead 3-2. They've got Marner and they've got Nylander on the ice. And, a couple of mistakes are made, right? Like, Nylander's playing center. He's in the slot in coverage. He's not looking around. He's puck watching. They don't get burned. Then Mitch Marner gets a chance to get it out, and he doesn't. And here's what I liked about it. What I liked about it is after they won the game, the camera went to Mitch Marner, and he was shaking his head, and he was pissed off at himself because he knows Craig Berube's given him the rope to go out and close out a game defensively, and he doesn't make the play, and he's angry at himself. In a game where he scores a couple of goals, he's been unbelievable lately, filling the net. I mean, he stepped up in a big way in Austin Matthews' absence, but he's upset and he's angry at himself for not making the defensive play. And, like, to me, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign.
I thought him and Nylander were incredible last night, and their goaltending has been incredible too. Toronto, they look like more of a complete team. And maybe, listen, is there something to be said about being 7-1-0 without Matthews? I don't know what that is.
Well,
right?
they're only going to be better when they get Matthews back. I mean,
I agree, but what's
they're
up with that?
they're
Power is better without Matthews on it.
well, look, here's what I'll say. When you lose a marquee player, everybody else steps
Everyone
up.
steps up.
Everybody else feels like, okay, we have to step up. We have to do more. Everybody goes 5% more. I think your second level, your other star players feel like, okay, we got to make sure we keep this thing on the rails while we got to look after our guy. We know those guys are super tight. So they're only going to be better now getting Austin Matthews back. But look, I think the goaltending situation right now, if Wall can play well, and he did last night, it's perfect because neither of these guys are guys that you want to ride and ride and ride. Okay. Neither of them are marquee starting goalies, right? They're both 1B type of guys, right? Like they're not, I'm not calling them backups, although Stolarz has been a backup his whole career, but he's not playing like a backup. He's playing like a starter.
Neither of them are proven to be starters in the NHL, so you can call them that.
Brian Boucher always says, the difference between like mentally between having to go out and do it every night and having to step in as a backup and do it once in a while, like it's the grind is so different and it's something most guys can't handle. And he's talked about it for himself personally. But so if you can have Wall, then Stolarz come in, and even if Wall goes 2 and then Stolarz goes 1 and then Wall goes 1 and Stolarz goes 2, and you've got that 50-50, maybe it's 55-45 split, like I feel pretty confident that those two guys working together can be a really nice tandem and maybe even something that they have to do in the playoffs to be successful. But I've never felt more confident in a long time in the Toronto Maple Leafs goaltending situation than I do as long as those guys are working together. If it's just one and you don't have the other, I don't feel this way. So I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. But yeah, Toronto, they look legit right now. And I think Matthews is supposed to come back in their next game, from what I've heard. Is that correct, Vic? It sounds like he's coming back for their next game.
Sounds like it.
Who do they play in their next game? Let me try to find that.
In Florida, John.
In Florida?
So a tough test. Like Florida's kind of looking to find their game. They haven't been good as of late. They started really well. They've tailed off a little. Let's remember something. American Thanksgiving is in a couple of days. We all know the significance of American Thanksgiving when it comes to making the playoffs. I mean, there's a lot of data that suggests, what is it, 80% of the teams in a playoff spot, something like that is it's important. So
and that actually brings me to an honorable mention that I wanted to bring up when it comes to power rankings. Obviously, this team does not belong in our top 5 and probably not even in our top 10 right now. But Colby, Buffalo Sabres won 7 out of their last 9. They've won 3 straight games. They just swept the West Coast trip. 4 out of their last 5. They're in 3rd in the Atlantic right now. And Thanksgiving is on Thursday. Buffalo Sabres, maybe they're a playoff team. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think they're a playoff team. I just don't.
I mean, the Atlantic is a disaster right now.
Yeah, but I don't think they're a playoff team. I think the Bruins have won 2 straight. Couple of low-scoring games. Again, they need to score more goals. But I think Swayman's going to find his game, and I think ultimately the Bruins are going to creep their way back up and get themselves into a situation where the Buffalo Sabres are going to probably not have an opportunity to make the playoffs. I mean, even right now, Buffalo's got 23 points. The Bruins have 23 points. Buffalo just happens to have 1 extra game in hand there. So, look, they've played better. Their goal differential's a positive for once. When do they ever have a positive goal differential? We've talked about the strength of their team being through their back end. You're starting to see this Bowen Byram trade really work well. He's playing on that top pair with Dahlin, and then Power is again continuing to develop and grow into himself as an NHLer. I like the sandpaper that Connor Clifton brings to that third pair. So I like the decor. We'll just see. We'll see if it's enough.
Mhm.
Let me ask you a question.
UPLs look good.
Where is your Calder pick? Where's Devin Levi, the guy you thought they were going to trade and get all sorts of value for?
Yeah, it's been rough. Not good.
He's back in the American League.
Yeah. James Reimer had a pretty strong game the other night for Buffalo. I think he had a shutout the other night against LA, if I'm not mistaken.
They picked him up off. Never a good thing.
Well.
Never a good thing for Devin Levi to get when you see a guy picked up off waivers. But Levi doesn't have a lot of pro hockey under his belt. Like, you need to go get starts in the American League. Like, Tuukka Rask played almost 3 years in the American League. It's normal for goaltenders to have to go through that. It's better for goaltenders to start game after game after game in the American League than to be getting one out of every 3 or 4 at the National Hockey League level. Remember, there's no practice time in the NHL. There's none. So it's not a development league. And so good for Buffalo. We talked about the dumpster fire. Remember the incident with Dahlin, the hip check in practice, the fight. So maybe there was something to that. It seems like they've gotten their ship in the right direction. And if they don't, Kevin Adams has got to go. I mean, he's got to go.
Yeah, no, I agree. We don't have a lot more time for today's show. I got to get to the St. Louis Blues morning skate here at MSG. So let's get into our bet of the night. We did hit on Thursday, but we do have Vic back also, and Vic's usually good luck with these picks. But this is my pick, and I saw it a lot in the chat today, and I think it's warranted that we go with the St. Louis Blues tonight on the money line at MSG, plus 200 against the New York Rangers. I don't think the Rangers have any business being this heavy of favorites, no matter who they're playing. St. Louis, we talk about the new coach bump. We did it last week with Boston. Boston came out and won the game. We're going to do the same thing tonight with the St. Louis Blues. The Rangers, to me, just, this is a game that could be a huge letdown at home against a team that is going to be really hungry to come out and win a game for their new coach. And, I think this has the setting to be a really ugly game at MSG for the home team. So we'll see how they do coming back from a lengthy road trip, a road trip that ended in 2 horrible games on the road. Colby, I know you didn't watch, but the first periods of the Calgary game and the Edmonton game were 2 of the worst first periods I've seen this team play, arguably ever. Let up 20 plus shots in both first periods in those games. So I'm curious to see how the Rangers come out and start tonight, but at plus 200, I think it's just the value to take St. Louis tonight. Any thoughts on that game?
Again, I'm not out on the New York Rangers. I'm not emotional about the Rangers, so it's easier for me to have a little bit of a holistic look, I guess. And I still think they've got enough talent, and they've got Igor Shesterkin, and there's too many good players to for this team to continue to fall off, right? And so we'll see what happens tonight. Are you going to be booing in the press box? Are you going to be remain professional, or are you going to boo? What's going to be Johnny Media or Johnny Fanboy?
I might have to boo. I'm pretty good about it. But
that might be a bad look in the press box. Just friendly advice. But
I mean, I'm fully kidding, and I hope everyone in the chat knows that I'm kidding as well. I would never boo or cheer from the press box. I did that once.
Before you pick a game to watch and we let you get to morning skate, I do want to just bring this up really quick.
I'm seeing a lot of back and forth in the chat. Is that something that you're talking about?
Thoughts and prayers with 16-year-old Colin Brown, who was shot and is in critical condition in St. Louis. Colin was driving home with his dad after attending a high school hockey game between CBC and Marquette. It was a random and senseless shooting in St. Louis. It sounds like, he's in critical condition. I've seen different things about it, hockey community. You see anything on there? You see any GoFundMe's? You see any ways you can support, make sure you do. Make sure you do and you help. I thought that was, I've seen that all over social media. So I did want to say that. I see all the discourse in the chat. Again, I see all these people going back and forth. And look, everybody has an opinion. But it is always really interesting to me when people want to use They talk about people as if they know them when they don't. Like you're reaching. Unless you physically know somebody, you don't know who and how they are. Like certain people have public personas that you may love. Your favorite player in the NHL may have a certain public persona, and he may be the biggest. Not going to swear because we have Bet365 on, but you know what? Away from the game and off the ice, a lot of things. There's an old saying, Johnny, never meet your heroes, right? There's a reason people say that. So think what you want. We've had Tony on the show twice. He talked in the summer all about the Georgiev incident. Other players have talked about it. Keandre Miller has talked about the nonsense of that incident. Again, Tony came in, spent an hour with us this summer, and he everything was fair game. He talked about anything and everything we wanted to talk about. So if you want to have personal problems with people over their political views, go for it. I think that's silly. But again, have whatever opinion you want, Johnny. I know you wanted to talk about a game that you wanted to look after tonight.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the chat stuff, I'm reading it now as well, and people, like you said, they can have their opinions. No one has to like everyone, I'm not going to sit here and like defend anybody or say.
And if you want to threaten us because you don't like our guest, it's really easy to just hit X and don't listen to the show. Like, again, you're going to threaten us. Go listen to the 1 hour episode we had. Do your homework, because you sound like a moron when you just use hot button buzzwords, okay, to judge and talk about someone. You sound like you got your talking points, and that's what you're going to go off of, okay? But again, it's in all walks of life. You talk about someone like you know them that you've never met, you sound pretty stupid, okay? You sound really stupid. So, Johnny, big slate tonight. Let's get to some games. Yeah. What are you going to be watching?
Well, I'll be at the Ranger game, but Winnipeg, Minnesota is definitely the game to watch. 1-2 in the league. The best team in the NHL right now versus the second best team by the standings. And I'm curious to see how the Minnesota Wild do. Any timetable on Kirill Kaprizov?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Me either. That's a big loss for them, obviously, but their goaltending has been great. Minnesota looks like a really strong team, and I'm curious to see how they look tonight against a really strong Winnipeg Jets team as well. So that should be a good match to watch. I should be able to tune into the end of it, depending on what time I get home from the Ranger game. But I think that should be the universal game to watch tonight in the NHL.
Yeah, well, so for me though, like Avalanche Lightning,
yeah, that'll be a good one as well.
Like anytime you have that cast of characters on the ice, I want to watch it. I mean, I love watching Tampa, and then you look at the offense that Colorado's been playing with lately. I love that. I absolutely am going to be watching that game. Let me say one more thing. I've been riding with Jeremiah and the Washington Capitals since before the season started. Jeremiah, like I'm devastated for you. I'm devastated for your fans. I'm worried about Ovi with the broken bone. I really hope they can kind of hold it together enough without Ovi to continue to stay in a good spot. I think they're going to find a way if they can just tread, keep their head above water, tread. I hope they can get Ovi back in and get him back up to speed, because we were witnessing history this season. And I did see that, Jeremiah, that he's already without a boot. That's a
it's a funny tweet.
I don't know the significance one way or the other. I know a lot of times guys will make sure they walk out without their walking boot, and then they get home and the walking boot goes right on. So I'm not going to put a ton of stock into that. But Jeremiah, I'm pulling for Spencer Carberry. Dylan Strome is a friend of the show. He's been on the show this summer, gave us an hour of his time. So again, let's hope they can keep things moving along here and get Ovi back, and they can get to it. So that's all the time we have today. As always, give us a like, give us a subscribe. We appreciate you all jumping on with us. Just a reminder, we will only have a show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, with Thanksgiving obviously being on Thursday, American Thanksgiving being on Thursday. We know Canada already celebrated it. We were going to bring Vic on the show and make him explain who goes on a week-long bachelor trip I think that's just obnoxious and absurd, but we're not going to give him the airtime because he just doesn't deserve it, leaving us high and dry last week. We'll see when eventually he gets out of the doghouse. Although I hear he's got another week-long honeymoon coming up. Like, this guy doesn't understand that this is hockey. Like, you got to do it in the off season. Clearly, we're not that high of a priority. Johnny, how many shows have you missed since we started the show?
Do we count the extra one in Vegas or no? The Friday one?
No,
in Vegas
I wouldn't count that. I'm talking regular season last year. How many shows did you miss? One?
I think I missed one. Yeah.
One. I think I had Butchie on as a special guest. How many shows have I missed? Like one, maybe?
I don't think you've actually missed any.
Okay. I mean, I think I might have had to cut out early on a show one time, but I don't think I've missed a show. I've got a 1-week-old newborn, never missed a show.
It's just going on a bachelor party.
I'm just wondering because like I don't know, like Vic,
I haven't met a wife yet because of this show.
Vic is a pretty important part of our show, and apparently he's going to take 2 weeks off this season. Pretty disappointing, but I guess it is what it is. We know where we fall on the priority list. I think our wedding gift to him, Johnny's probably gonna, we're probably gonna have to take a percentage out of the wedding gift and make sure that we use it in order to buy us a real producer. When a guy who's gonna show up every day. Look, I used to listen to Howard Stern for a long time before he went crazy. Tell you what, Gary Delabate never missed a show on Howard Stern. Never missed a show. So
all the Ranger fans want an accountability. Well, we're having accountability on this show. That's
we're giving Vic. Vic needs to be more accountable for his actions. Like, go on your bachelor party Thursday after the show. Come back Monday morning. Maybe you miss a Monday, but like, geez, like a week. I mean,
I kind of want him to show his face right now.
No, we're not going to let him show his face. You got to get to pregame skate.
Yeah,
Look,
I gotta go.
We appreciate everybody rolling with us today. Keep an eye on Johnny's social media throughout the day. He'll probably, get an opportunity to sit in Monty's. He already went. All right, so he won't. Like and subscribe. Tomorrow we'll have Frank Saravalli back with us. We'll ask him about Mike Sullivan, some of these other coaching things going on. And we'll see everybody back here 9 a.m. tomorrow. We appreciate you rolling with us.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.